We are back. Have a very special broadcast today at 4 p.m., which is, well, now. We're awaiting the official beginning of the posthumous awarding of the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, who would have been celebrating his 32nd birthday today. Happy birthday, Charlie Kirk in heaven. His wife, Erica, I believe his children, probably a bunch of his friends, family members, supporters, will be at the White House here momentarily as President Donald Trump, who's had a very busy, not even a busy day, busy week, as President Donald Trump does what he's going to do, and that is award the highest civilian honor to Charlie Kirk, who was killed, again, murdered by I guess, I mean, right now we believe it's this young dude from Utah who climbed up on the building while he was at Utah Valley University, giving his speech, talking to people, talking to Democrats about, the differences of opinion they had. And what happened was he took a bullet to the neck, as we all saw, and he was pretty much killed instantly. And now President Donald Trump, on his birthday, and on what is a day of memoriam. This is it. This is the day of memoriam. This is the official day that Congress decided we would remember Charlie Kirk, and it was a bipartisan vote. The majority, there were still some holdouts. There were still some people that didn't want to honor Charlie Kirk and never will. But the majority of members of Congress decided today was the day to do it. And President Donald Trump himself said today we're going to honor Charlie Kirk with that Presidential Medal of Freedom. Since then, we've seen, I mean, it's been kind of tumultuous. It's not as straightforward and not as, I guess you would say, easygoing as we would have thought. Erica Kirk gave an amazing speech, heartfelt speech, forgiving this dude that shot her husband and killed him. Something that I still haven't done. But this is she gave that speech at the Arizona Stadium for his memorial service. We heard from the president, we heard from the vice president, we heard from other dignitaries, we heard from friends of Charlie Kirk and members of TPUSA. TPUSA continuing to just explode in membership. Hundreds of thousands of new chapters all across the country. Millions of people now getting involved in TPUSA. In Oklahoma, they're saying every single high school will have a chapter of TPUSA in Oklahoma. There's still people, of course, who are fighting. The University of Tennessee, we just heard there, or it was not University of Tennessee, one of the Tennessee universities just denied a TPUSA chapter on the grounds that it was hate speech or something ridiculous like that. So it's an uphill battle. Plus, there's the internal turmoil. There's some of the angst of Candace Owens, who I guess was felt slighted by what's been going on since Charlie Kirk's death and has been sharing personal text messages that's called into question some of the donors and the future of TPUSA. But it is an organization that is important, that is necessary, that does good work, that is changing the face of the United States of America, that is really, I mean, it is converting an entire generation of youth to conservatism and allowing them to realize that Christianity and conservatism and Christ-like living and the family, all of those are important. All of those are important things to respect and to honor and to establish and to continue as we move forward. And if you really want to save America, it begins with saving the American family. And that was something Charlie Kirk believed in. It's something he fought for. It's something, unfortunately, he died for. And it's something that today President Trump will honor at the White House. We are awaiting I want to go to the official White House live stream because, well, I figure that's best. But there will be all kinds of ceremonies. I imagine President Trump, again, who was just back from Israel, giving speeches, just back from Egypt, where he gave a speech where he accepted awards of his own for this peace deal. President Donald Trump, who earlier today was visiting with and hosting the president of Argentina, Javier Milei. President Donald Trump, who just released another image of a narco-terrorist boat getting obliterated in the water off of Venezuela. All of these things that he's been continuing to do. I mean, you want to talk about energy. You want to talk about somebody who goes nonstop. President Donald Trump is probably the most energetic person we've had. And of course, today it culminates. I don't know if it culminates. I mean, I'm sure he's got something else on the docket, but he takes time to honor Charlie Kirk. It reminds me a lot. Now, the last And I know that there have been presidential medal of freedoms given, presidential medals of freedom given. I know Joe Biden gave a bunch. I think he gave one to, he couldn't pronounce the people's names. He would give them awards. He'd be like, Kasamale Kawawa. I think I said that right. That was Joe Biden's way of giving out medals of freedom. But I remember I remember it was one of my favorite moments of all time in political history was during the first Trump administration when Rush Limbaugh was there and President Donald Trump at the State of the Union address. This was the one where Nancy Pelosi, I don't know if you remember where she tore up the speech, but President Donald Trump had Rush Limbaugh there as a special honored guest. And Rush Limbaugh was battling cancer at the time. He showed up. President Donald Trump pointed to him, honored him, mentioned him in his speech. There was a standing ovation from mostly Republican members of the House of Representatives and Republican members of the Senate and Republican people in the gallery. Most people, a lot of them just stayed seated, but everybody got up and they applauded for Rush Limbaugh. And then President Donald Trump surprised Rush Limbaugh with the Presidential Medal of Freedom there at the State of the Union. I don't know if you remember, it was an incredible moment. I believe it was the First Lady who she had it in her bag, whatever. And then if Donald Trump said, Rush, we're bestowing on you the greatest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And all of a sudden, Rush Limbaugh was looking around and Melania was right there she's like, surprise, I got it. And they put it on him. And it was just an amazing moment, really. And that gave me chills. That gave me chills, not just because I was a huge Rush fan or because I was in talk radio at the time, but it just gave me chills because I thought it was an incredible moment. And then later on, Nancy Pelosi was so upset that she ripped up the speech. And she ripped up the speech and threw it down in disgust. And that was my second most favorite moment of Donald Trump's first term was when he pushed Nancy Pelosi to the brink where she tore up her speech in disgust. I thought all of it was really incredible. It was really phenomenal stuff. And I loved every single minute of it. But this is going to be something a little bit different. Probably not as it's going to be bittersweet because it's an honor that is deserving. Charlie Kirk is deserving of this honor. Charlie Kirk in 31 years did more for American democracy, did more for our republic, did more for Christianity, did more for the American family, did more for the Republican Party than probably most people do in a lifetime. What he was able to accomplish with TPUSA, what he was able to go out and do using social media, using his own energy, going out, just on a campus tour, walking around, talking to people, arguing, debating, bringing forward all of these differing opinions. What he was able to do and what he was able to build in such a short period of time, truly remarkable. I mean, it was just truly remarkable. And so it is something that is an honor that would it have been bestowed on him at the age of 31 had he not been murdered? No, probably not. But it is fitting. It is fitting, now that his life has been ended abruptly to share this honor with his wife and with the rest of us and to honor his memory. Again, we wish it were something that he were here for. We wish this were the kind of honor that he was getting because of a lifetime of work, not just 3 decades of work, or really even a decade and a half, because he started when he was 18 and he was 31. That's 15 years. That's 13 years really. So in 13 years, what he was able to accomplish, again, it's enviable by any facet of the imagination. And so President Donald Trump's going to come out and he's going to give this award. I would imagine that Erica Kirk is the one that's going to be receiving the award. I imagine that she's going to be there, probably with her family in tow, and that she's going to accept the award on behalf of her late husband. And it'll be something again that is bittersweet. Something that is deserving, but something that you wish he had been there to witness. I do remember Nancy Pelosi. Man, she was so mad. Nancy Pelosi. I remember there was a press conference or someone was interviewing her afterward about how surprised she was, how shocked and appalled she was that President Donald Trump would interject the State of the Union with an award for Rush Limbaugh, who she despised. And she said, I thought he was going to give it to John Lewis, which that's the weirdest thing. And why would Nancy Pelosi believe that Donald Trump was going to give the Presidential Medal of Freedom Award to the late John Lewis? I don't understand that at all. That didn't make any sense. I don't know why she thought he would give it to John Lewis, especially since John Lewis, he wasn't there. But anyway, we had fewer moments oh, pardon me, fewer moments in President Donald Trump's first term were as exciting to me as that one. Now in his second term, and there's been a lot of amazing things that has happened since his second term, but that was one of the great moments. And then of course, there are a lot of moments with Charlie Kirk. I remember seeing President Donald Trump at TPUSA in 2023, I think it was 2023 or 2022. I guess it was 2023 maybe. TPUSA in Tampa, and we went to the Student Action Summit, and President Donald Trump was there. That was the event where President Donald Trump was invited, and Ron DeSantis was also invited. I think I have photos of it. Let me go see. President Donald Trump was invited, and Ron DeSantis was invited, and we were broadcasting live. And what happened was, let's see, Tampa, July. Here it is. Nope, that's this year. Let me go, where would it have been? Oh, here it is. Was that it? No, that's different. Oh, that's way far away. I'm going way back. But it was President Donald Trump was invited to come speak to everybody at TPUSA, as was Ron DeSantis. But Ron DeSantis didn't want to speak at the same event as President Donald Trump. So what happened was he bailed. He said, I'm not going. And I don't know that that was the right play. I don't know that that was the right maneuver. And what happened was, at the end of the day, oh, here we go. Yes, here we are. At the end of the day, Ron DeSantis, I think he showed up and he spoke. And I thought to myself, wow, if anybody could get Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump at the same venue, at the same time during an election year, it was Charlie Kirk. And lo and behold, he did exactly that. Let me see if I can pull it up here for everyone to. Oh no, where did it go? Oh, I literally just had it. Here we go. Oh, what was that? That was some The Heart of Glass was playing. Hang on, let me go back here, and let me go. I think it's here. Here we go. No, I don't want the music. I want the actual photos. See, here's this thing that I don't like that Apple does is they try to put my photos, like I'm just like, I just want the photos. And they're like, oh, you know what we'll do? We'll put the photos together for you in some fancy little thing. And I don't want that. I just want the actual photos. And I can't seem to get them, which is kind of annoying. That's really annoying. Hang on, here we go. Well, I have one photo. This is ridiculous. Anyway, next time I'll prepare better. But hopefully, like I said, there won't be a next time. Hang on, Tampa. See all. Right? Yeah, here we go. All right, I had it a minute ago. All right, let me go back down here to Ron DeSantis. And then, like I said, it was an amazing bringing together of warring factions. But that's also a tribute to what TPUSA is all about, because TPUSA was all about, everybody wanted to be there. Literally everybody wanted to be there. Here we go. All right. So here's Big Daddy D. Here's Ron DeSantis, and he's there at TPUSA. There's the Student Action Summit, a huge party-like atmosphere. Oh, this appears to be video that I took. Let's see.
They are not prosecuting. They are not prosecuting cases. You can steal $999.
Yeah, they are not. I think they were booing Joe Biden. They weren't booing Ron DeSantis. They were booing something that Ron DeSantis was saying about Joe Biden, but not Joe Biden himself. I'm sorry, they were booing Joe Biden, not Ron DeSantis himself. And then look, here's all the students. Here they are walking around. Really, again, this was all Charlie Kirk. This is what he was able to do. He was able to bring these students from all over the country. And they came to Tampa, and there's some old dudes as well were there, and that guy's very confused looking. And then they're all well dressed, and they're all just there celebrating America and Christianity and President Donald Trump, and they were excited about the election. And that's what TPUSA is. Oh, here's the schedule for tomorrow. There's me getting coffee. Some of these could be. Oh, look, there's me with Lauren Boebert. That was Lauren Boebert swung by for a little interview. She was. She had a book that she was promoting, and there she is smiling. Fun fact, She wasn't as personable as this photo makes her look. I'll just say that. But it doesn't matter because, again, that's what happens at TPUSA. Everybody comes together. Everybody wants to be part of the fun. Everybody wants to be part of the action. Everybody wants to save America. And that's what we did. And we interviewed tons of, and this was, like I said, it was an election year. So you had everybody coming together. Marjorie Taylor Greene was there. As we said, I think this was Hannah, took like a bajillion photos. This is way too many photos of me and Lauren Boebert. Nobody really needs this many photos of me and Lauren Boebert, but that's a good one. Again, that's fine. I can dig it. And there we are posing with her book because, there's Hannah. There you go. All right. And then look, these were the protesters. There were protesters outside. You may remember this was the event where the protesters showed up and then The View said that there were Nazis, that Charlie Kirk allowed Nazis inside and there were Nazis at the event. And that's not true and then they had to issue that apology. This is Morgan McMichael, who's a TPUSA contributor. Here's a dude who this guy had me talk to his mom because he ran up to the table at TPUSA and said, "My mom, would you please say hi to her?" So
there we go.
Blake is here. Hold on, let me turn it the other way. I guess that's Blake. And then I talked to his mom. Oh, Moms for Liberty. I forget her name, but she was lovely. The Buff Show, Matt Buff. We were on the Matt Buff Show. Very cool. We did a little interview, and we're both bald in this photo and in real life. So there's some cornhole. There's a party or something. Anyway, you don't need to see. Well, we're buying concert tickets for something. I don't even know. I guess that was the Eras tour. Who knows what's going on? But that's what it was like. It was, and still is, and still will be. Now, the next big event, there's another big event coming up. And that is coming up in December, and it's in Phoenix, and it's called America Fest. And America Fest is if you think SAS is huge, America Fest is 3 times the size. And that is I guess you would say it's the flagship event, because Phoenix is where TPUSA is headquartered, and it was where Charlie Kirk is from, and it's where everybody, would group together once a year, and they would come out and they would say, "Hey, look, we're celebrating America." And so, and I've never actually been to the Phoenix event, but if there's ever a year to go, I would imagine this year is one of the years to go. Now, it looks like everybody's outside in the Rose Garden and they're getting ready. We see the Fox News live stream. The White House has not yet launched their live stream yet. So let me maybe we can pull up the Fox News live stream and watch that a little bit before, or the RSBN one, before the White House goes live. Because
RSBN, scan that QR code there now.
Yeah, what happens?
Again, Clearwave technology.
We don't want to do that. We'll just wait for the White House. The White House will have their official live stream going in just a minute, but they have it's a full house. Everybody's outside. The American flags are ready to go. Let me pull up Fox News here real quick, and we can just stream it live so that we can watch it as we're preparing to begin what is going to be the posthumous awarding of the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Charlie Kirk, the founder of TPUSA, who was killed by a gunman, a crazed gunman. Let me mute this, and then we'll pull it up. Here we go. Screen share. There we go. Now you can, let me just do this. Here we go. Now you can see let's pull this up this way. There we go. Now you can see what's happening with the Rose Garden. You can see everyone's situated there, ready to go. Let's go to TV Watch. There we go. That's better. That's a little bit better. All right. And now we're just waiting for the ceremony to begin. And like I said, when the ceremony begins, we should be able to get something on the White House official feed, which they usually start right away. But as you can see, first of all, it's a beautiful day in Washington, D.C., which is amazing. And they've got the guard there. It looks like you've got some of the guard, people from all various different military establishments. It looks like you've got a bunch of young people. I imagine a bunch of TPUSA folks, a bunch of Charlie's friends, probably people who work for the organization. I don't know about his parents. A lot of people ask about his parents because you don't really ever see them. They weren't featured prominently at his memorial service. They haven't been featured prominently on the news or anything like that. I don't know the actual story with Charlie Kirk's parents. I don't know if they're just, still traumatized, if they're very private people, if it's something that, if they've purposely tried to stay out of the spotlight. I don't know. So I'm not gonna speculate or offer any conjecture, but I will say that his wife, of course, is the new CEO of TPUSA. She's here we go. Let's go live to the White House feed now. Perfect. So we will go here to the White House, and they will begin very shortly, and we will take it live as soon as the White House begins their feed. In the meantime, we can go back to Fox News for a bit, just so you can kind of see the setting. And again, this is something that, we don't want to have to watch, and we didn't want to have to watch. I mean, this is not the way you want to celebrate someone's birthday, of course. This is not the way you want to celebrate somebody's birthday. You want to celebrate with them. But that unfortunately, because of the lunatics on the left who have adopted this whole this idea of political violence, because of that, we're not able to do it. Because of that, we're having this ceremony where we're posthumously awarding a Medal of Freedom to Charlie Kirk. And I imagine that his wife would still want him here. His kids, of course, would still want to be there. I don't know if they're going to be there or not. That's always a rough call too. I always think about the kids and I'm like, do you bring the kids along to these things? I would imagine you do. You want them to have the memories. I know that he has one daughter who's just way too young to probably understand what's happening. Son that's way too young to probably understand fully what's happening. But you want them to have the memory of this experience. So that one day when they figure it out or when they reach back, they can say, yeah, I remember being at the White House for that, and I didn't really understand what was going on at the time. But now, years later, it's been explained to me, and I understand, what a great man my father was and what an impact he had on this country and how his life was taken, how he was taken from us way too soon. You want that. You want your kids to be able to, I would think, understand and have that kind of knowledge of their dad. But, again, it's not. I don't know. It's not my call. This is something, again, of course, that is, it's really, first of all, the weather looks amazing for this. I'm glad that they're doing it outside. The weather does look beautiful. Usually these are indoor ceremonies, but I have to say, I think that this is just another tribute from God to Charlie Kirk, allowing this fantastic weather and this ceremony to be taking place outside. As they present this honor. It's interesting because I've been watching on and off little snippets and clips of Charlie Kirk and his studio because, his podcast continues. Even though he's gone, the mission of his podcast continues, and the people that run TPUSA and have worked with him on his podcast, they continue. They're continuing the tradition and continuing the message. And people have been coming and they've had a lot of guest hosts. One, Glenn Beck, I know, went in there and he brought the golden EIB microphone with him. And he left it there for Charlie Kirk. There are various toys from his kids that are there. Other people have brought various different items to leave, almost like an altar, at Charlie Kirk's chair there at the at his studio, his podcast studio. And I don't know if the Presidential Medal of Freedom will live there as well. I'm not sure what their plan is for it. But his podcast studio has kind of become this shrine to him. This impromptu shrine to Charlie Kirk. And it's really something that I think it's a great gesture. And I think it's a fantastic way to keep his memory alive. Even though, there's so much else going on with TPUSA and with the country and with the elections that his memory will live on forever. Now, a couple of things are happening today. First of all, everyone should be wearing red. I'm wearing red. I know that was the big thing, was to wear red. And then you're going to see also memorials all over the country. We've already seen a bunch of them today. We talked a little bit about it earlier on the show. We've got this going on at the White House. And I imagine in Phoenix, there's probably TPUSA chapters all over the country that are airing this live. I know my son's college, the TPUSA chapter is airing this live so that anybody that wants to go watch it, they can all watch it and experience it together, which is kind of nice. I know that they did that for the memorial service as well. I know there's a lot of Republican clubs out there who like to air these things live and have everybody come together. So and that's why we're doing it too. We're airing it live together even though we're all in different parts of the world. But that way you can comment and you can, leave a comment and other people can share it and hear their memories and that kind of thing. As well, one of the really interesting things that's happened since Charlie Kirk's assassination is that, it's really, I think the way people have reacted to it has been something that is really kind of quizzical. What usually is a moment to bring people together has almost torn a bunch of people apart. Candace Owens being the most notable, Tucker Carlson, that kind of thing. And it really also shows, I think, one of the most difficult things that Charlie Kirk was able to do was keep the warring factions of the Republican Party together, because there are warring factions in the Republican Party. Like, there are people, ever since I got into the political realm and ever since I started running for office, I've realized how many different factions there are in Republican politics. There are people that are moderate and hate the conservatives. There are people who are conservative and hate the moderates. There are people that just hate everybody. There are people that have this agenda, and if you don't support them, then, you're a horrible person. There are people that love Israel, and if you don't support them, then you're the worst. And if you do support, then there's people that don't support Israel, and, they come up with these ideas that, are new and kind of out of the realm of possibility. But what happens is it drives wedges in between the Republican Party. But what Charlie Kirk was able to do, we're now realizing, is kind of keep all of that at bay. And I don't know if I imagine it was his personality. I imagine it was his demeanor. I imagine it was the way he played politics. I imagine it was the stage that he was able to provide people, but he was able to keep the party together. It doesn't matter which side you were on, or if you were pro-Israel or anti-Israel. It didn't matter if you were a rhino. If you were a Republican, if you were a conservative, he was able to bring you to the stage. And what we saw with Tucker Carlson and the aftermath. Did he lose funding because he had Tucker Carlson on the stage? Maybe, but he had Tucker Carlson on the stage, and I saw it with my own eyes. He had Russell Brand on the stage. In fact, it was amazing the number of notables that would come to these TPUSA events, and in just an hour, you would see so many people. In 1 hour at the Student Action Summit, I remember seeing Russell Brand, Tom Homan, Brett Cooper, and there was one more, because they each got like 50 minutes. It was Tom Homan, Russell Brand, Brett Cooper, and Tucker Carlson. Duh. And I was like, that was the most incredible hour. I mean, it was an amazing hour of personalities and perspective and politics. And you had Brett Cooper, who rolls out pregnant and tells you the story about how she left the Daily Wire. Then you have Tom Homan, who comes up and tells you a story, and then someone tried to heckle him and he almost punched him in the face. Then you have Russell Brand, who's just like a whirlwind, just crazy funny. And then you had Tucker Carlson, who comes up and starts yelling about Qatar, and half the people walked out, but it was amazing. It was a truly incredible experience. And it's very difficult to keep people together when they all agree on something. But when you have all of these different warring factions that disagree on so many different things, I mean, it's got to be even more difficult. And the patience of Job, they say, if anybody had the patience of Job, it had to have been Charlie Kirk, because he was able to wrangle all of these folks and get them at these events. And from the president of the United States to the governor of Florida, egos galore, really cool. One thing I did notice, though, is I remember when we were at the SAS in Tampa, it was the same weekend when the Dan Bongino, quitting rumors popped up. It was Friday night. It was Friday afternoon, really. And all of a sudden it was like, Dan Bongino's quitting. Dan Bongino's packing up his office. Dan Bongino's had enough. Dan Bongino's so sick of the way this Epstein mess was handled by Pam Bondi that he's walking. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, Pam Bondi's going to get fired. Who's going to be Pam Bondi? Who's going to be the attorney general? And then all of a sudden, Matt Gaetz, who was supposed to speak at SAS, canceled. And Matt Gaetz was supposed to be there and he canceled. He just never showed up. We're like, what? Matt Gaetz canceled? Oh no, he's going to DC to take Pam Bondi's job finally, which is something we all really wanted in the first place. And then it was Harmeet Dillon. I had an interview with Harmeet Dillon scheduled for Saturday morning, and her rep writes me and goes, I'm sorry, we have to cancel and reschedule at a later date. And that was it. Harmeet Dillon. We're like, oh, it's not Matt Gaetz. It's going to be Harmeet Dillon. Of course, that makes sense because she's the deputy attorney general in charge of civil rights. So she's going to step in. But then Oh, and then Charlie Kirk got on stage with Megyn Kelly, and the two of them just started ripping Pam Bondi to shreds. And Megyn Kelly was like, she's out, she's got to go, she's got to walk. And Charlie Kirk was like, how many of you are really, the Epstein files are important to you? And he was pushing the Epstein files and everyone was cheering and yada, yada, yada. And it was the one time I think I'd ever seen him come out against a member of President Donald Trump's staff. Not as much as Megyn Kelly was the one that really came out against him. He kind of, in a subdued way, came out against Pam Bondi. He really got the crowd, to come out against Pam Bondi. But then at the end of the day, come Sunday, President Donald Trump posted a huge Truth Social post about how great Pam Bondi was and how she wasn't going anywhere and everybody had to deal with it. And he wouldn't want the boys and girls of MAGA fighting and all that other stuff. And that was it. That was the end of it. We never heard anything else again. So it was really kind of interesting. But that was the only time when I saw Charlie Kirk on stage with and it was mostly Megyn Kelly, because let's face it, she's that new and improved, angry, angst-filled Megyn Kelly who likes to curse and tell it like it is. That's my favorite Megyn Kelly, by the way. That's her, and she's and she was the one that was really pushing it and pushing for Pam Bondi to be removed, but Pam Bondi was not removed from office, and she's still there. And I don't know why Matt Gaetz canceled, and I don't know why Harmeet Dillon canceled. Maybe they were called to Washington, D.C. just in case, JIC as they call it. Maybe they were called up for some impromptu interviews. I don't know, but they were not there. They both ditched. And at the end of the day, nothing really came of it all. And we finished up the Turning Point Turning Point USA Student Action Summit with Pam Bondi still in place. And Donald Trump scolding all of MAGA for acting. It was fascinating to be there and to really be at any place, to have all of those people who are so in the know and who are so ingrained with each other and so ingrained with the the Republican Party and the conservative, media. It was really fascinating. It was just truly, truly, truly fascinating. All right. It looks like from Fox News, which I don't know why my Fox News went away. From Fox News, it looks like everybody's lining up and taking their seats. So I would imagine that momentarily we're going to see this thing begin. Again, we're still waiting for the official White House feed, which is the feed that I like to go with because, it's the official. I know they're not going to ding me for copyright infringement or anything. But in the meantime, let's take another look here at the Fox News feed. As you can see, everyone's kind of taken their seats. Everyone's kind of settled in. It looks like the photographers are now in the back, and the military, the soldiers, the color guard or honor guard have all kind of lined up in place. It looks to have been settled down a little bit. And as soon as that live feed begins, that's when you're going to see, I don't know. And again, I don't know who's going to start. I don't know who's going to be first out. I don't know if it's going to be President Donald Trump or if somebody else is going to come out first. I imagine there'll be a few different speeches. I don't know that they'll just bring out the president. Probably somebody else from Turning Point may speak, or one of the other cabinet members. They all knew Charlie Kirk. I mean, heck, he put most of the cabinet in place. That was one of the other things. Charlie Kirk was responsible, and a lot of people don't know this, for choosing much of the cabinet. Russ Vought, for example, he was a huge proponent of Russ Vought, and as soon as President Donald Trump won the election, he hightailed it to Mar-a-Lago, and he was there every single day in the meetings, and he was meeting with all the advisors and Susie Wiles, and he was making sure that, he was letting them know. He was letting Donald Trump know. He was letting his team of advisors know, these are people who are MAGA. These are people who are not. These are people your supporters will approve of. These are people your supporters will not approve of. And that was something. And he got a lot of people that he wanted in places of political power. He got a lot of people that he thought were going to do a bang-up job in places where they could do a bang-up job. And that is, again, something to his credit, something that not everybody could do, but Charlie Kirk was able to do. And that's why the cabinet, I mean, again, he gets a lot of access because of who he was, or he did get a lot of access because of who he was, but also because he was a proponent for Pete Hegseth, for example. He was probably a huge proponent for Marco Rubio. He was a huge proponent for J.D. Vance, the vice president of the United States of America. And Donald Trump was not sold on J.D. Vance. I mean, remember all the things that J.D. Vance had said about Donald Trump before he converted. But that was one of the selling points. They had to really sell J.D. Vance to Donald Trump and to the United States of America. And now look, we've got one of the greatest vice presidents. It was one of the greatest tickets in history, and truly one of the greatest vice presidents we've ever had. a huge upgrade from the last two. A huge upgrade from the last two. And somebody that we feel confident can take the helm if need be, or in 2028 can continue Donald Trump's agenda if and when he wins the next election in 2028 for at least 8 years. And whoever he picks, whether it's Marco Rubio or somebody else, they'll be able to hopefully, learn from him as well, and then pick up the mantle and move on for another 8 years. And hopefully we can just keep Democrats out of the office forever. But we have, like I said here, it looks like we're setting up. And I imagine here shortly before too long, we got Will Cain's show. Let's move off of Will Cain for just. Will Cain's a lovely guy, but we don't want to bust in on his show. It's even Caroline Leavitt. One of the first times I saw Caroline Leavitt in person before she worked for the President Donald Trump campaign, she was running for office in New Hampshire. She was running for New Hampshire's 1st district. She was 23 maybe, or 24, really young. And had she won, she would have been the youngest representative in the House of Representatives in history, had she won. And so Caroline Leavitt comes out on stage and Charlie Kirk introduces her and she sits down, and I was watching the two of them. They had a conversation, a back and forth, and he was interviewing her and she was talking about New Hampshire and why she was running and what needed to happen and yada, yada, yada. And she was so great. And I thought, oh, she'll be great in the House of Representatives. But of course, New Hampshire is not as red as we'd like it to be. And the Democrats still kind of rule the day. So she lost. She popped back up on the campaign trail as President Donald Trump's campaign press secretary. First, she had a radio show for a brief stint in Boston, and she spent about a year on the radio. We interviewed her while she was on the radio. Then all of a sudden, she left her radio show and she jumped up and she became the press secretary for the campaign. And we bumped into her a few times because we were covering the campaign. She was campaigning. And then after the campaign, after she did such a bang up job there, Donald Trump was picking his campaign or his press secretary. And I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't think anybody, I'd heard rumors that maybe Alina Habba was in the mix, or there were a couple of other names that he was thinking of. But I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't think it was ever going to be anyone other than Caroline Leavitt, because she did such a bang up job on the campaign as the campaign press secretary. And lo and behold, sure enough, she got the gig, and thank God she did. Hold on, let me plug my iPad in there because it's about to die. Because otherwise, gosh, I don't know if anyone would have been able to handle the job as well as she's been handling the job, these past 7 months, and will continue to handle the job for the next 3.5 years. But that was, again, somebody that Charlie Kirk, when you think about, this is the impact that he had. He helped her when she was a candidate for the House of Representatives. And when she didn't win, he helped her, I'm sure, get the job on the campaign. And then when the campaign was over, I'm sure he put in his 2 cents for her to be press secretary for the administration. And now she is. And that's kind of, that's the story of Charlie Kirk. That's the story of how he, we talk about Donald Trump being a kingmaker, but he did a lot himself. He had a lot of say and a lot of sway. And I think a lot of the things that he's been able to put in place, we are all reaping the rewards of. We talked earlier today about how Eric Trump was talking about how he fought for his, Under Siege, his brand new book is out. And it tells the story of how he and his entire family had to fight. They had to fight against all the evils of the Democrat Party and against the witch hunts and against the lawfare and against the indictments. And that he was, everyone was subpoenaed a bajillion times and they were answering questions, the millions and millions of dollars they had to spend defending themselves and their family name. When Twitter took their father off, they also deleted their business accounts, their Shopify account, their stores. Their way of life was disrupted simply because of who they were and the fact that they had a different world point of view. And so he talked about how fighting through all of that allowed his father to be reinstated as president, reelected as president. And now that he's back, look at all the good that's out. Look at all the people that are being saved. Look at all the safe streets we have. There's people in Washington, D.C. who are walking around safe, who are not victims of dangerous crime because President Donald Trump is president. There are people in Washington, D.C. who are walking around, going out to dinner safe, not at all concerned for their welfare, not at all worried about getting carjacked or attacked by youth gangs. They're doing that because of President Donald Trump being back in office. And a big part of President Donald Trump being back in office was what Charlie Kirk and TPUSA did. And that is something that even President Donald Trump himself, as he said, if it weren't for Charlie Kirk, I don't know that I'd be president right now. And these Venezuelan boats, think about this. When President Donald Trump orders an attack on one of these Venezuelan narco-terrorist boats that keep rolling around with Tren de Aragua, bringing fentanyl and other drugs into our country, whenever he shoots one of those boats out of the water and he destroys the drugs, those are drugs that were headed here. Those are drugs that were coming to the United States of America. Those were drugs that were going to kill American civilians, Americans. And now they're not. And the reason is because President Donald Trump got reelected. And one of the big reasons why President Trump got reelected was because of Charlie Kirk. So yes, Eric Trump fought for his family. Don Jr. fought for his family. We all fought for the Trump family. Charlie Kirk fought for the Trump family, and he fought and he encouraged young people to not only vote, not only get involved in the process, but to understand how conservatism was the way to go. Why conservatism was the best way to go. All right, it looks like President Trump's coming out here. So we'll go live now
the President of the United
to the White
States,
House.
accompanied by Erica Kirk.
Thank you very much, everybody. Please, this is such an honor. This is the, please be seated. This is the first time we've been at the new and improved Rose Garden, and people are loving it. They're loving it like they've not loved a lot of things. We have the Presidential Walk of Fame, which you just saw, and that just opened, and we wanted to get it open for this occasion. We were hoping we were able to get outside, and the weather allowed us to. It was supposed to be a terrible rainy day. I was telling Eric, and God was watching, and he didn't want that for
Exactly
Charlie.
right.
He just didn't want that. So it's really beautiful. It couldn't be more beautiful. Today we're here to honor and remember a fearless warrior for liberty, beloved leader who galvanized the next generation like nobody I've ever seen before, and an American patriot of the deepest conviction, the finest quality and the highest caliber, the late, great Charlie Kirk. Five weeks ago, our nation was robbed of this extraordinary champion. He was a champion in every way. I got to know him so well. He didn't like losing, and he was able to fight people that were enemies, and he didn't necessarily love those enemies so much. You know, I heard he loved his enemies, and I said, wait a minute, is that the same Charlie that I know? I'm not sure, but I didn't want to get into it. But it was a horrible, heinous, demonic act of murder. He was assassinated in the prime of his life for boldly speaking the truth, for living his faith and relentlessly fighting for a better and stronger America. He loved this country. And that's why this afternoon it's my privilege to posthumously award Charles James Kirk our nation's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Thank you. As you know, only hours ago I returned from
Looks like the video's a little bit brighter.
As you
on
know,
Fox
only
News.
hours ago I returned from a very historic trip to secure peace in the Middle East. People said that couldn't be done. Charlie felt it could be done. Charlie felt it could be done. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. But I raced back halfway around the globe. I was going to call Erica and say, Erica, could you maybe move it to Friday? And I didn't have the courage to call. But you know why I didn't call? Because I heard today was Charlie's birthday. And I said, you know, that was a definite. And I said, we're going to have to forget about some of those very big, very rich countries that expected me to be there. And I can tell you, based on the length of that flight, I wouldn't want to go back tomorrow. But I would not have missed this moment for anything in the world. Nothing. And it's a very important time for our country, and our country is doing so well. It's never done better. We are a country with almost now $18 trillion of investment coming in. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. Previous administration had less than $1 trillion for 4 years. We have more than 18, it'll be much more than 20 by the time the year, more than $20 trillion. There's never been a country in the world that had anything like that. What's happened to our country is incredible in a short period of time. Charlie was a big person for, sir, could we close up those borders, please, a little bit? You know, they're really leaking badly. I said, Charlie, I haven't gotten there yet. But, you know, it came out the last 4 months. Literally nobody was allowed into our country. And the only people that were allowed in were people that came in legally. The borders are absolutely stone cold closed. And they reported 0, 0, 0, and 0. So that's pretty good. But he was a big believer. He wanted people in the country more than I did, frankly. He wanted them to come in legally. And he got his wish. October 14th is Charlie's birthday, and he should have been turning 32 years old. I tell you, when I first met him, he was like 22. And I said, boy, he's awfully young. But I thought he was older than that, you know. He looked a little bit older than his age. That's okay, you know. That's not good when you're old, but when you're young, it's great. He had the best of all things, but he was special. But instead, Charlie is attaining a far more important milestone. We're entering his name forever into the eternal roster of true American heroes. He's a true American hero, an amazing person, way, way beyond his years. And I'm honored to be joined by a woman who has endured unspeakable hardship with unbelievable strength, and that's Charlie's widow, Erica. And I just want to thank you, Erica. He loved you so much. I was with him. Oh, please. Thank you, darling. Thank you. I was with him before I met Erica, and he told me he was going to get married. He said, you won't believe how beautiful she is. I said, well, then now that I meet her, he's right. But then he also said, and you know what? She's like the smartest person I know. See, they do go together on occasion. Not often. Not often. But on occasion they go together. But he was in love with you. He was deeply in love with you. It's great. Erica, your love and courage have been an inspiration to all of us, and we will always be here for you, and we're always going to be here for your gorgeous, beautiful children. And we'll never forget what your family has sacrificed for our country. Man loved our country. When things were going badly for our country, he was so, as you know, angry. He would get angry because he said it doesn't have to be that way. We're also pleased to be joined by an incredible group of Charlie's friends, very powerful friends, actually. And some not so powerful, and they're actually better people, okay? I know them all. They're the less powerful ones. I have to tell you that, all of you power guys down here. The best ones in the group are the ones that are less successful, but that happens too. No, they're all great, and they're here. And let's start with Erica's father. Where is Erica's father? Where are you? Where are you, Dad? Oh, look at him. Wow. I want to get a hat like that, too. I like that. How are you? Nice to see you again. Thanks as well to Vice President J.D. Vance, who's been fantastic. J.D., thank you very much. Great. Doing a great job. Did a great job on Sunday with George Slopadopoulos. Put him away pretty good. Second lady, who's a phenomenal woman, Usha Vance. Thank you very much, Usha. Thank you very much. Great woman. President of Argentina. He wanted to be here. That's Argentina's a serious flight, right? and he's become a superstar, and he's doing amazing things. He's a MAGA person, but it's make Argentina great again. That's what he does, right? And I want you to stand, please, Javier Milei, doing a great job. Thank you very much. Many members of my cabinet are here, just about all of them are here. I won't go into every single one of them, but I'll announce a few of the people that have really turned this country around and helped me. Incredible people. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. Where is Mike? Mike, what a job you're doing, Mike. What a job you're doing. And I watched you this morning, and you're in there trying to say, look, just let the country open. Everything will be fine. We're dealing with some radical left lunatics. And I just wish Charlie was here to fight us. I think the fight would have been over already. He would have had a march on the Capitol by people whose average age is about 21, because there's nobody that had that relationship with young people. Right, Mike? So thank you, Mike, for being here. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise. Steve, thank you very much. A brave guy and a friend. House Majority Whip, another terrific man, Tom Emmer. Thank you, Tom. Senate Majority Whip, John Barrasso. John, thank you very much. Yeah, all these senators, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm not going to read all their names. I'll be reading all day. We'll be talking about Charlie in about 45 minutes from now. We can't do that. So all of the senators, there's so many of you, thank you very much. I do want to thank Senator Thune for doing a terrific job. He's really been leading properly. Do you agree, Mike? The team, the two of these guys have been fantastic. So to Senator Thune, I want to thank you very much. Incredible job. I watched him this morning, and he was out there pounding them this morning on television, too. And John Barrasso, thank you for the work you've done, and congratulations on your success. But I want to thank you all and all of the Congress people that are here. And I see we have our Attorney General here, and you are doing a fantastic job. Thank you very much, Pam. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have everybody. Wow, that's incredible. Okay, I'm not going to do any more. I'm going to be here too long, but I just want to thank you. Have given him such support, but he always gave you such support. That's why you're here. And very unusual. Charles James Kirk was a visionary and one of the greatest figures of his generation. He was truly an amazing figure and growing leaps and bounds. He knew that the fight to preserve our heritage is waged not only on the battlefield and in the halls of power, of which we have tremendous power here, including the head of a place called war. We call it now war. We had defense. We had our Secretary of Defense. Now we have a Secretary of War. And somehow I think it's more emblematic, and hopefully we'll never have to use war. But the fact that we're ready is very good. Peace through strength is very important. But also in the hearts of our nation's youth, that's where Charlie rode strongest. At age 18, that insight inspired Charlie to found the organization that ultimately touched the lives of millions and millions of people, and so many young people that nobody's ever seen anything like it, frankly. Turning Point USA. It's amazing, and it's actually bigger now. It's become bigger in the last few weeks than Charlie ever thought.
No kidding.
I think his end vision in many years from now would have been just a fraction of what it turned out to be in a couple of weeks, right? It's amazing. With hard work and joyful spirit and endless enthusiasm and determination. And he did have great enthusiasm. You know, I always say you need enthusiasm to be successful. He had great enthusiasm. Charlie grew Turning Point into the largest conservative youth organization in the entire country. He forged a personal bond with countless young conservatives. He fought for free speech, religious liberty, strong borders, and a very strong and proud America. In everything he did, he put America first. He really put America first. And ultimately, Charlie became more than a leader of an important organization. He became the leader of historic movements all over the country. There were movements, individual movements, one movement. But it was historic. Everything he did was historic, and a true evangelist for the cause of freedom and the word of Almighty God. God was very important to Charlie. He would say, you know, if you don't have religion, you're not going to have a strong country. It's true. He was so wise beyond his years. You know, I talk to him sometimes and say, this guy is like a young guy. He was really a wise man. From the time Charlie worked on my presidential campaign in 2016, and he was there right from the beginning. He liked me. I don't know. I have no idea why. What the hell was he thinking? He said, you're going to win, sir. I said, you know, I'm running against 17 senators and a lot of tough people and governors. We have all these people. And he said, no, you're going to win, sir. He said, not going to be close. And he made it happen. He helped make it happen. I'll tell you that. Without him, who knows what would be. Maybe you'd have Kamala standing here today. That would not be good. I will tell you, Javier, you don't know who Kamala is. Promise, it would not be good. You agree with that, Howard? He also mobilized countless citizens to go vote. It's called Go Vote. Very simple. And with his help in 2024, we won more young people than any Republican by far in the history of our country. And we won the popular vote. We won the swing states, all 7 of them. Remember, they said, oh, well, if Trump could win 4, that would be nice. I win 7 by a lot, by a landslide. But the popular vote was massive. And we won the Electoral College. Remember, they said, well, it's going to be very hard. I'd say 270. Well, we got 312 to 226. And then we won something called districts and councils and different things. But in one case, we won 2,750 to 525. That's the one where you see the map is almost entirely red, except they have a little blue line on one side and a little blue line, meaning New York and a little bit Los Angeles. I have a feeling that if the vote were 100%, we would have won that too. You want to know the truth. But he knew, and he knew very well, and he also understood honesty, and he was always concerned with honesty. He said the only way we can lose is if the cheating gets so bad, and that's where we came up with a little phrase, too big to rig. We said, go out and vote. Just go out and vote. And we had that. Remember, we used to say that all the time because people would say, oh, they're going to win. We don't have to vote. Let's go to a movie. We'll come home and watch later. And he wasn't about that. So we come up with really together, we came up with that phrase, we got to make it too big. I never made a speech where I didn't say at the end, now look, the polls are showing good. Don't believe the polls. He said, we're going to make it, Susie, right? Too big to rig. So if you think we're going to win by a lot, doesn't matter. Pretend we're losing. You got to go out and vote. They voted. And at 9:02, the whole thing was over, right? 9:02. Remember, they said, oh, this could go a few days. Well, went a few minutes. 9:02. And he knew that. And I felt it, but he knew it. He knew it. I think he knew it more than anybody. But Charlie never missed an opportunity to remind us of the Judeo-Christian principles of our nation's founding or to share his deep Christian faith. In his final moments, Charlie testified to the greatness of America and to the glory of our Savior, with whom he now rests in heaven. And he is going to make heaven. I said, I'm not sure I could make it, but he's going to make it. He's there. He's looking down on us right now. It's so incredible. Look at this, how this turned out. This was supposed to be so dark and cloudy. Not dark and cloudy, is it? Look at that, how beautiful that is. There's no artist that can capture it as beautiful as it is today. Wow, it's amazing. As I said, on the day that he was assassinated, Charlie Kirk was a martyr for truth and for freedom. And from Socrates to think, and to St. Peter, from Abraham Lincoln to Martin Luther King, those who change history the most, and he really did, have always risked their lives for causes they were put on earth to defend. He was put on earth to do exactly what he was doing. He didn't want to waste time. He would have been a top student at any college in the country. I know the college as well. He's smarter than the guys there. He was so smart. But he almost, I guess, didn't have the time. He knew what he wanted to do. It wasn't like, gee, I want to sit in the classroom for 4 years listening to people teach me liberal principles, because they were never going to teach him that anyway. But he didn't have the time. He really didn't have the time. But every time the enemies of goodness and virtue tried to silence the voice of righteous and noble leaders like Charlie, they fail. They seem to fail. Ultimately, they look like they're doing well, and then they end up failing because the truth has been unrelenting over the years, over history. And people like Charlie, it's just they've got a power that others don't have and very few people will ever have. So today, like those martyrs before him, Charlie's voice, his message, and his legacy are stronger and greater than ever before. They are greater than ever before. Look, this is a horrible event, but it brought out the greatness of Charlie. Nothing could have ever supplanted this. It's incredible the way people are talking about him. And with great love. I mean, I read so many stories about some of the enemies, but I watch the enemies, and it's hard for them to speak badly about him because they just don't. And then you do have people in the days since Charlie's killing, we've seen exactly why our country so dearly needed his example. We've watched legions of far-left radicals resort to desperate acts of violence and terror because they know that their ideas and arguments are persuading no one. They know that they're failing. They have the devil's ideology, and they're failing, and they know it. They feel it, and they become violent. They seem to become very violent on the left. They've rammed vehicles into federal law enforcement, fired sniper rifles at ICE agents, and me, you know. But I made a turn at a good time. I turned to the right. Charlie couldn't believe it, actually. He said, "How the hell did you make that turn?" I said, "I don't know." But fired rifles and threatened the lives of our Supreme Court justices, our great justices. They have to be protected. We just issued a lot of money, $60 million, to protect the Supreme Court justices. Very important. We can't let anything happen. In places of worship, we're protecting our people. We've seen that a candidate for Attorney General in Virginia boasted that he would want to see the Republican legislature, a legislator in Virginia, shot in the head and to see his children murdered. He actually said this. And now he continues to run for office, and most people continue to back him, but he said he wants his man shot. He said shot in the head and to see his children murdered. And they keep running. Pretty amazing, right? That's a bad one. Let's see how that turns out, but that's a really bad one. Nobody's heard that one before. Especially in the wake of Charlie's assassination, our country must have absolutely no tolerance for this radical left violence, extremism, and terror. We're done with the angry mobs, and we're not going to let our cities be unsafe. We're going to make sure our cities are safe. When you have Chicago, where they had 4,000 people murdered over a very short period of time, 4,000 people, and then we have a governor stand up and say, "Oh, things are going swimmingly." No, they're not. We're going to make Chicago safe, just like we're going to make, look what we did in D.C. It's so nice that we started here, because this was one of the most violent places in the United States. It'd be dangerous to be right out here. But you couldn't go to a restaurant. The restaurants were all dying. The whole place was dying. You'd have these gorgeous, look at the Washington Monument over there. You'd have these gorgeous buildings and monuments and structures. And people were afraid to leave their apartment. They were afraid to go to work. They'd get into an Uber and they'd feel safe, and then the Uber would be attacked. They thought they made it to safety, and then the Uber was attacked on the trip in. But we've done a great job, and now it's considered a totally safe city. We haven't had problems. It took us 12 days to make it great. We took out, Pam, 1,700 hard criminals, career criminals in many cases, but these are hardened criminals. Many of them came in through the Biden open borders. We brought them back to the countries. And a couple were so violent that we put them in jail. We don't want to take a chance that they could get back in, because no matter how good we do, somebody can sneak in. They were so violent and so bad. One arrested 28 times. Every time he left prison, he'd get into a violent incident. 28 times. And we put him away for a long time. But we're done with the angry mobs. We're done with it. This is such an unbelievable place right now. You take a look where you can walk down the middle of the street with your wife or your husband. Your children can walk. They can walk alone. It doesn't matter. They can walk anywhere in Washington, and they're safe now. If this were a year and a half ago, a year ago, they'd have a serious chance of being badly hurt, even killed. Even killed. They'd come in from Indiana, they'd come in from Iowa, they'd come from Florida to see their nation's capital, and somebody would have to call the parents, I'm sorry, but your son or your daughter's been killed. Not anymore. You hear those sirens going off? That's good. That's a good sound. That means they either got the bad guy or they're going to stop the bad guy. You didn't hear that sound because nobody wanted to do anything. Nobody. Listen to the beauty of that sound. Seriously. And that's the real deal sirens. They're not politically correct sirens. You hear them, they're about 3 miles away. That's great. What a beautiful sound. They're stopping crime. That's what they're doing. So we're done with the voices of fools. They're fools. And death threats, and we're going to make our cities safe. And I thought it was Charlie's, one of his biggest dreams was that. He couldn't believe it. Chicago's going to be a great city again. We've already, we sent people in there 6 months ago, and this governor said, well, crime is down. Yeah, that's because we had the FBI in there for 6 months, just preparing it for the bigger surge. And they've done a great job, the cash and the FBI. They've done a great job, and they love doing it, They love being able to do it. They were restricted from doing it. They couldn't do anything. And now they're totally unrestricted. All they have to do is stop crime, and they're doing it. By the way, Memphis, as you know, you heard they went in about a week ago, one of the most dangerous places in the country, really in the world. It's not just the country. They have very few cities that would compare to some of these cities. You go to Afghanistan, you say, oh, that's unsafe. Well, the crime numbers are much better than the crime numbers in places that we have. So Memphis, I understand, is doing unbelievably in 1 week. It's like a different place. And this took 12 days, and then after that, we just perfected it. But after 12 days, we had good safety here. After 1 month, it's like, it's really amazing. And by the way, restaurants are booming. Restaurants are opening up. The big problem we have, you can't get into a restaurant in D.C. anymore. So they're opening up. It's a beautiful thing to see. It's called safety. It's called law enforcement and letting them do their job. And that's why I said last month that I have directed the Attorney General and the Department of Homeland Security to confront the very real threat of left-wing terrorism in our country. It's a real threat. Not when you confront it, it's not, because they're not brave people. In fact, they're cowards. When you confront them, they immediately fold. You have to see them fold. You have to see them crying. They fold. But it includes dismantling the networks that fund them and finance them, and we're finding out who those networks are. We already know quite a few of them. When you see these violent incidents, and then you see people holding this gorgeous sign with beautiful wood, beautiful cardboard, wood, everything's perfect paint job, and they're all the same. There are thousands of them. You know that they weren't made in the basement out of love. They were made by anarchists, and in some cases wealthy. I'll probably find some of my nice friends that are up there being so nice to me, especially lately. They're being very nice. But it surprises you who they may be, and you almost wonder why would they do it? But they're hurting our country, and we're really taking it back one by one. If we didn't go into Los Angeles early on in the administration, the commissioner, the chief of police, Los Angeles, said if they didn't go in, we would have lost our city. Now, they already lost 25,000 houses to fire because they wouldn't let the water come in from the Pacific Northwest, which they should have done. I said, you better do it. They didn't do it, and we had 25,000 homes where they had no water in their sprinklers, they had no water in their fire hydrants. It would have been a different kind of a thing if they did what they were supposed to do. We had to break in. We broke in and had the water come down. They said for the environment, it's great. They lost 25,000 houses. It's incredible. But the commissioner said without the federal government and President Trump's intervention, we would have lost the entire city. And we have the Olympics going there soon. I got the Olympics. We have the Olympics. We have the World Cup. And we have, most importantly, we have the 250th anniversary of our country. That's going to be most important. And all of these things are happening. And we're going to have safe cities. We're going to have very, very safe cities. So 1 month after Charlie's death, we still feel the terrible shock and the pain of his loss like just about nobody I can think of. Charlie Kirk was one of a kind. He was unstoppable. And he really was. Boy, when he had an idea in his head, he would call me, "Sir, please, you haven't done it yet." I said, "Charlie, relax. Just relax." He didn't relax. He'd call me the next day again. It got it done. But he was like indomitable and always will be. He's really irreplaceable. Nobody can replace him. But they're going to do great. But you can't replace that kind of person and that kind of talent, frankly. The word talent is an important word, but that kind of talent. So we hold his memory in our hearts forever. Every single day of this administration, we will continue to carry out the mission for which he lived, and he really did. He lived for this country. He lived for his wife and his family, but he lived for this country too. In Charlie's honor, we will continue like we have been to fight, 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 and to win, win, win. We're going to win so much. So the Presidential Medal of Freedom is a big deal. You have the Congressional Medal of Honor, military, and the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is civilian. And the Presidential Medal of Freedom is a really big deal. Very few people get it. Very few people, frankly, qualify. It's a decision of the president, but it's a qualification that's a very hard one to get. And I would like to ask, if I might, the military aide to read Charles James Kirk's citation for the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Thank you very much. Thank you.
The Presidential Medal of Freedom is awarded to Charles James Kirk. Accepting on behalf of Charlie is his wife, Mrs. Erica Kirk. Charlie Kirk was one of the most influential American political figures of his generation. At just 18 years old, he founded Turning Point USA and grew it into the largest conservative youth organization in the nation. For over a decade, he tirelessly traveled the country, leading a movement to restore respect for our founding principles, reawaken our national identity, and inspire a renewed spirit of religious devotion. He was one of the great debaters and communicators of his time. Despite receiving repeated threats, he remained undeterred and modeled courage, logic, humor, and grace to the next generation. On September 10th, 2025, at age 31, Charlie Kirk was assassinated while addressing a group of students. The United States honors him as a martyr for truth and freedom.
So there it is. The the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor given there to Charlie Kirk, accepted by his wife, Erica Kirk. President Donald Trump handing it over. Vice President J.D. Vance there in the front row. Susie Wiles, you can see the entire White House is there. Most of the cabinet, he said, a ton of senators, ton of Congress people, I'm sure. I saw Kash Patel in the crowd. Everybody just, there to honor Charlie Kirk in his memory. Now Eric is going to say a few words, it appears.
Thank you, Mr. President, for honoring my husband in such a profound and meaningful way. And thank you for making this event a priority amid the peace process in the Middle East. Thank you. Very grateful. Charlie always admired your commitment to freedom And that's something that both of you shared. So thank you. Your support of our family and the work that Charlie devoted his life to will be something I cherish forever. So thank you. To our gracious First Lady in her office for making this event possible, thank you as well. It's beautiful. To Vice President and the lovely Usha Vance, your friendship has been an unbelievable encouragement. Thank you. And to all our friends and family that are here and watching from all around the world, thank you for loving us. Thank you for praying for us and for believing in what Charlie believed in. And to our Turning Point USA staff and the Charlie Kirk Show staff, we love you more than you could ever know. And to the Turning Point USA chapters that are watching all across America right now, you are the heartbeat of this future and of this movement. Everything that Charlie built, you guys are the legacy holders of that. You are living proof that his mission did not die with him. It lives through you. And Charlie always said the next generation will decide whether freedom endures. And because of you, I know that freedom will endure. It will. And today we're gathered not only to celebrate Charlie's birthday, but to honor a truth that he gave his entire life to defend, and that's freedom. The very existence of the Presidential Medal of Freedom reminds us that the national interest of the United States has always been freedom. Our founders etched it into the preamble of our Constitution, and those words are not relics on parchment. They are a living covenant. The blessings of liberty are not man's invention, they are God's endowment. Charlie lived for those blessings, not as abstract words, but as sacred promises. He used to love to journal about this topic all the time, and with such a heart postured of gratitude. And he believed that liberty was both a right and a responsibility. And he used to say, freedom is the ability to do what is right without fear. And that's how he lived. He was free from fear. He was free from compromise, free from anything that could enslave his soul. His name, Charles, literally means free man. And that's exactly who my husband was. He was a free man. And from the time I met him, sitting across from him, being interviewed on politics and philosophy and theology, anything that Charlie loved, any topic he loved, and I just saw the fire in his soul, and there was this divine restlessness within him that came from knowing God placed him on this earth to protect something very, very sacred for all of us. And he never stopped fighting for people to experience freedom. He didn't. Charlie often said that without God, freedom becomes chaos. And he believed liberty could only survive when anchored to truth. And I remember in one of his speeches, he told the audience that the opposite of liberty isn't law. He said it's captivity. And that the freest people in the world are those whose hearts belong to Christ. But what's so powerful is that Charlie had the ability to communicate so brilliantly across all generations. And he reminded us that in a world that tells us freedom is doing whatever you want to do, the real freedom is the power to live freely and to do what is right. And in one of his journal entries, he wrote that he wanted everyone to know that you can't have liberty without moral responsibility. Freedom divorced from faith eventually just destroys itself. And what's so fascinating about all of this is looking back these past 12 years of Turning Point USA and his mission, there's almost this veil of sacredness. Because what I realize is that while he was building an organization, he was also building a movement, one that called people back to God, back to truth, and a movement that was filled with courage. And ironically, for a man who impacted millions, Charlie never desired to be the center of attention. He just wasn't. My husband was not a man of extravagance. He loved simple but deeply meaningful things. Truly. He loved his late night walks. He loved buying more books than he could ever read because he felt there was no such thing as a book budget. And he loved being able to read to our kids the same bedtime story on repeat because he knew it was their favorite. But to him, that was special. And he loved to sit in the sun on a Saturday morning with his cup of decaf coffee, and his phone was off because he was honoring the Sabbath. And for him, it was that moment to catch his breath and just be in peace because he was unreachable at the moment. And he preferred quiet birthdays. But that never stopped me from telling him. I told him every single year, I said, baby, I love your birthday. I said, because it's the day that God knew the world couldn't go another day without you. And so the rhythm of our usual birthday celebration for him was mint ice cream, mint chocolate chip ice cream. He only had it twice a year, on his birthday and 4th of July. It's just, and then after that, it was back to work as usual. But last year, his one birthday wish was to see the Oregon Ducks play the Ohio State. And they won. Oregon won that night. And it was by far one of the most memorable nights of his birthday experience of his life until today. And so, honestly, President Trump, I have spent 7.5 years trying to find the perfect birthday gift for Charlie. And it's so difficult. And those of you that have spouses or loved ones, you know how difficult it is sometimes to buy a gift for someone that you love, because he wasn't a materialistic man, so that also did not help. But now I can say with confidence, Mr. President, that you have given him the best birthday gift he could ever have.
Thank you.
It's such an honor and the recognition of a life lived for defending freedom. And that's what Charlie fought for until his last breath. And it was written across his chest in those final moments on one of his simple t-shirts that always carried a message, and this one bearing a single word, freedom. That was the banner over his life, and that shirt was a declaration. The same declaration he made in every speech, every campus visit, every time he shared the gospel at a church, every sleepless night that he would spend praying for the youth of this nation and planning for the future of our country, and just impressing upon them that when we defend liberty, we defend the soul of our nation. My husband never told anyone what to say. He never did. He never told anyone what to say. He would just encourage them to think. He would encourage them to think outside of the traditional political labels. He would want them to think in a way that was anchored in wisdom and truth. But he would never tell anyone what to say. Charlie wasn't content to simply admire freedom. He wanted to multiply it. He wanted to multiply freedom. He wanted young people to taste it and to understand it and defend it. He wanted them to see that liberty isn't self-indulgence, it's self-governance under God. He wanted them to see that. And every day I'd see him getting ready for work. He'd put on his cross necklace, he'd put his ring on his finger. And the boldness in his demeanor was always fearlessness. He wasn't afraid. He was never afraid. In his daily actions, whether in office or on campus or at a church, it was always without fear. That was his creed. That is how he lived out every single day. He didn't fear being slandered. He did not. He didn't fear losing friends, I can tell you that. He didn't. He didn't care. He stood for truth and stood for freedom, and he did not, everything else was just noise to him. And it's because his confidence in Christ was absolute. That's why. There was no limit to what he would have sacrificed to defend freedom for all. And if the moment had come, he probably would have run for president, but not out of ambition. He would only have done it if that was something that he believed that his country needed from a servant's heart standpoint. And Charlie lived only 31 short years. Now he's 32, but on this side of heaven, but he lived. He lived every single second he lived. He filled every single day with purpose, and he fought for truth when it was unpopular. And he stood for God when it was costly, but that's what we're called to do. Surprisingly enough, he did pray for his enemies, which is very hard, but he did. He did. He did. No one else, I mean, I saw him do it. No, he never did it in front of anyone else, but I can attest to that. But he also loved people when it was inconvenient. And he ran his race with endurance, and he kept the faith. And now he wears the crown of a righteous martyr. And for me and for our children, the truth really steadies our grief, because heaven gained what earth could no longer contain. A free man made fully free. And to all watching, this is not a ceremony. This is a commissioning. And my message is simple. I want you to be the embodiment of this medal. I do. I want you to free yourself from fear. I want you to stand courageously in the truth. Listen for the still, small voice of God. And remember that while freedom is inherited in this country, each of us must be intentional stewards every single day. God began a mighty work through my husband, and I intend to see it through. And the torch is in our hands now. It's in mine, it's in yours, it's in all of yours, it's in all the students with Turning Point USA. And before I close, I'll share with you that I asked our daughter what she would like to say to Daddy for his birthday. Excuse me. She said, "Happy birthday, Daddy. I want to give you a stuffed animal. I want you to eat a cupcake with ice cream, and I want you to go have a birthday surprise. I love you," is what she said. And while our son is precious, he can't yet speak, in classic Kirk family fashion, his actions spoke louder than his words, and his gift to you, Charlie, and myself for that matter, was deciding to become the man of the house and be fully potty trained at 16 months. But Charlie, baby, I know that you're celebrating in heaven today, but gosh, I miss you. We miss you, and we love you, and we promise we'll make you proud. And Charlie's life was proof that freedom is not a theory, it's a testimony. He showed us that liberty begins not in the halls of power, but in the man of a heart surrendered to God. And so today, as we honor Charlie with this incredible Presidential Medal of Freedom on his birthday, I stand here with tears and just a humbled heart and spirit, because his story reminds us all that To live free is the greatest gift, but to die free is the greatest victory. Happy birthday, my Charlie. Happy Freedom Day. God bless you.
Yay. Wow. She gives emotional speeches, huh? There you go. That was her emotional remembrance for her husband. And now we have some amazing grace. It was a great ceremony. Man.
The President of the United States,
Wow, there you
and the
go.
widow of Charlie.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there we go. That was it. That was the ceremony to honor to honor Charlie Kirk with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and it was as heartfelt as we thought it would be. Erica Kirk with a touching speech, President Donald Trump with some humor and some levity, and also some memories of Charlie Kirk as well. And we'll wrap it up. We'll be back tomorrow, of course. If you don't yet subscribe to this channel, do it, because we'll cover more of this tomorrow, and there'll be a lot more news to cover as well. And we appreciate you being here with us. We hope that you remember Charlie Kirk as we do. We hope that you pick up the mantle, as Erica said we should all do, and that you speak and live freely, and that you push for freedom and fight for freedom